Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Red River Roundup. My name is Marshall Leffler. I'm your host. We are presented by the Gridiron Football USA All-American Game, and of course, we're here live right here on 446 Sports. Saturday, November 15th, we've got a few playoff games that are still to take place today, I believe. But we had a lot of Friday night action in the bi-district round of the LHSAA football playoffs. Of course, the top seeds in all these brackets did have a bye week last night, so they were either watching the stream or practicing or prepping for the second round. But we did have several scores in the bi-district round. Several top 10 seeds were hosting playoff games and action taking place all over the state. We're going to speak with all our regular analysts here this morning and kind of get a recap of everything going on around the state and kind of see where those regional rounds will shake out. But let's take a look real quick at the brackets as they stand this morning. This is straight from the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. So if you can't see it on the screen there, I'll do my best to take you through everything that we have through round one. Starting in Division I non-select, Terrebonne gets a win over Natchitoches Central. That was an overtime game. The 9 seed versus the 24 seed. Chiefs almost pull off an upset there, but Terrebonne comes away with a win in overtime. Southside continues to be impressive, 52-14 over Prairieville. So those two teams, Terrebonne and Southside, will meet up in the second round. Central Baton Rouge, the defending champion in that bracket, the 5 seed, they get a win over Dutchtown. And they will take on East Ascension. East Ascension had a big win over West Ouachita last night. Zachary over Salmon. They'll face Denham Springs. Denham Springs, who jumped from 12 to 4, they have the bye week, so they'll face off. Destrehan is going to take on the Ouachita Lions in another matchup between Destrehan and a 2-5A opponent. Lions get a 3-point win over the St. Amant Gators, so Destrehan and Ouachita in round 2. Hahnville gets a win over Slidell, the 11th seed. They'll take on Parkway, who Parkway beat Covington last night in South Bossier. So Parkway Panthers will face off against against Parkway there in the second round. Northwood of Shreveport, they fall to Barr. Barr goes up there and puts up 49 points, and they'll take on West Monroe. West Monroe gets a win against South Lafourche. So the Barr Bucks and the West Monroe Rebels will face off in the regional round. Mandeville puts up 48 points against Thibodaux. They take down the Vikings. So Mandeville will face off with the Neville Tigers in round 2. And gosh, I mean, just naming some of those matchups already, like sheesh, bring on Friday night. Division II non-select. North DeSoto, the 1 seed, they're on to the second round. They'll take on DeRitter. DeRitter was able to defeat Eunice last night, so the Dragons and Griffins will face off in round 2. Jennings with a win over St. Martinville, so they take on Franklinton. Franklinton with a big win over Rain. Got to watch a little bit of that game in the broadcast booth last night. Demons with the 8 seed this year, so they'll take another 8-9 matchup in round 2. Plaquemine over Livonia and Wassman over Minden. So Plaquemine against Wassman in the regional round. Cecilia, their title defense starts with a big win over Carroll. So Cecilia will take on the 4 seed Lakeshore Titans, who had a bye week in week 1. Bellchase, the 3 seed, they move on via the bye, and they'll take on Opelousas. 19 upset the 14 seed. Opelousas takes down Pearl River. So Bellchase and Opelousas in the second round. West Feliciana takes down Bossier. Bruley continues their run. They take down Albany, so Westphal and Bruley in the second round. Franklin Parish knocked off Abbeville. They'll take on Lutcher in the second round. That's going to be a really good game. Northwest takes down South Terrebonne. They'll face Iowa, the 2 seed, who was undefeated in the regular season. Let's look at Division II non-select. Gina, the 1 seed, they'll take on St. Helena. St. Helena beat Avoyelles last night on the road. Marksville held score at home. They took down Patterson. They'll travel to Mansfield next week. Everybody in DeSoto Parish hosting playoff games next week. Logansport, North DeSoto, and Mansfield. They all have beautiful stadiums. I've seen all 3 of them. Great place for playoff football. So DeSoto Parish will be packed next week. against Marksville. Erath and Union Parish. Union Parish ran the ball well against Rayville last night, kind of got back to what they do, what's gotten them in far in this bracket. So they'll take the trip down to Erath next week for a 12-5 matchup. Kaplan will take on Kinder. Kaplan beats Pine last week, Kinder with the bye week, last night, excuse me. So Kaplan and Kinder be a good Southwest Louisiana matchup there. St. James is on to the second round. Manny gets a rematch against Red River. The Tigers take down the Bulldogs. So Manny will go to beautiful downtown Vacherie next week, Tigers and Wildcats. And I think that's a game that's been played in the postseason here in the past few years at some point. Richwood, really nice win. They take down Caldwell Parish, and Richwood will face Oak Grove in kind of a Northeast Louisiana matchup. Oak Grove made quick work of Port Allen last night. Tigers and Rams in the regional round. That'll be at Oak Grove. Lorville with a nice win. They'll take on Church Point, who defeated North Webster. So you'll get Lorville versus Church Point in the regional round. Donaldsonville will face Sterling. They shut out Westlake, and the 15 seed Donaldsonville will move on. They'll go up to Sterlington to Dale Ashley Field next week and take on the defending champion Panthers. Moving to Division IV non-select, Haynesville rematch with Homer. Imagine that. That one will be at Haynesville. That's usually the Claiborne Parish Super Bowl in the regular season. I believe that's 117 times they've played this game. And I think someone said last night, counting the playoffs and other matchups, it's 130, give or take, matchups between Haynesville and Homer. It's unbelievable. I love going to Haynesville. So that'll be a great game. Homer has a really great home atmosphere as well. So that'll be a nice game between those two. Good rivalry. Jonesboro Hodge and Vinton will face off. Jay Hodge and Vinton get the win last night. Logansport with a shutout win. They'll take on Welsh, who's made runs in D4 non-select in the past. Grand Lake will take on Jeanerette. Grand Lake with a win over Montgomery. Jeanerette with a bye. South Platte and West St. Mary in the second round. West St. Mary with a win over Basile last night. Elton beats LaSalle. North Iberville beats Arcadia. So Elton and North Iberville will face off in round 2. East Feliciana with a big win over Delcom. Faraday with a shutout win over Northeast. So the 10 seed Faraday and the 7 seed East Feliciana will have a regional round matchup. And finally, West St. John with a win over General Trask. They'll get the 2-seeded Mangum Dragons. That's a look at the non-select bracket. And we'll run through select really quick. Again, a lot of bye weeks in this bracket for those top 8 seeds. So we've kind of got an idea of what those matchups will look like. Jesuit beats McDonough 35. They'll face Edna Carr in a Catholic League rematch. St. Paul's gets a home win over the Pineville Rebels, so they'll face off with the Evangel Eagles in round 2. Brother Martin takes down Liberty, so they'll go to Butch Stoker Stadium and take on the 5-seed Ash Trojans next week. Captain Shreve, Gators get a win over Hammond. They'll take on Catholic Baton Rouge next week. Acadiana, another district rematch. They get the win over Karen Crow on Friday. They'll travel to St. Aug for the regional round. Rummel takes down Holy Cross via shutout. Rummel will travel to Tioga to take on the Indians, who are the 6th seed in D1 Select. So a 2-4A matchup versus a Catholic League opponent there. John Curtis, they move through with the 7th seed, and they'll take on St. Thomas More, who beat the Lafayette Mighty Lions last night. So Cougars and Patriots in the second round. And finally, in that bracket, Bonneville, they get a win over Riverdale. First win for a while for Bonneville High School. They'll take on the Rebels of Turlings Catholic in round 2. Keep it moving here. Northside with a win in Select D2. So they'll take on the number 1 seed, St. Charles Catholic. St. Michael the Archangel gets a win over Laranger. So they'll take on E.D. White, 8-9 matchup in the second round. John F. Kennedy takes down Frederick Douglass. They'll get Madison Prep. UI will get Booker T. That'll be a second round matchup. Cubs will host that one. Lake Charles College Prep will host Leesville, who got a big win over Kenner Discovery. And Vanderbilt Catholic will take on George Washington Carver in the second round. Shaw gets a bye into the second round, and they'll face off against Haynes Academy, who took down Abramson. Bel Air with an upset technically over Patrick Taylor, so they'll take on Loyola Prep, who is the 2 seed in that bracket. And going through Division 3 and 4 really quick, Lafayette Christian will take on Parkview Baptist. They beat the Timberwolves of Darbone Woods last night. Catholic of New Iberia, shutout win over Glen Oaks. They'll take on Bunkie, the 8th seed, who had a bye week. Dunham through to the second round via bye. Northlake Christian with a big win over St. Louis Catholic. So Wolverines and Tigers, teams that match up in the playoffs in seemingly every sport every year, you'll get Dunham and Northlake Christian. Menard, shutout win at home in the Eagles Nest. So they'll get Newman next week. They'll travel to Uptown and face off against the Greenies in round 2. Slaughter Community Charter with a win over Pope. So they'll take on Jules Sumner in round 2. Country Day with a win over Beekman Charter. They'll face the Cavaliers of Calvary Baptist. Lafayette Renaissance Charter into the second round. A-Meet with a big win over Cohen. So A-Meet and Lafayette Renaissance in the second round. And De La Salle will face off against Notre Dame. De La Salle gets a win over the Episcopal Knights last night. Last bracket is Division 4 Select. Westminster Christian, undefeated, 1 seed. They'll take on Opelousas Catholic, who got a win last night in the bi-district round. St. Ed's takes down Lincoln Prep. They'll face off against Covenant Christian. St. Mary's with an upset on the road. Their reward is the 5th-seeded Ascension Catholic squad. That'll take place in the regional round. Catholic of Point Coupé will face off against Westminster Christian of Lafayette, who got a win last night against Sacred Heart of Ville Platte. So Catholic Point Coupé and Westminster Lafayette in the second round. St. Fred's dominated Cedar Creek last night, so they will face undefeated Hamilton Christian in the second round. Kentwood with another playoff win, kind of an up-and-down season for them, but they're through with a win over Vermilion Catholic. They'll get Ascension Episcopal. The Kangaroos and the Blue Gators. Boy, that is just a fantastic nickname matchup. I love that one. OCS, they're through. They'll take on Southern Lab. Those 2 teams have played in the playoffs here recently in later rounds. So this is a really, really good matchup in the regional round between the Kittens and the Eagles. And finally, the 2-seeded Riverside Academy, they'll take on Delta Charter, the Storm. They get a win against St. Martin's Episcopal last night, so they're through to the second round. That is a breakneck breakdown of the bracket as it stands this morning. But enough from me. Let's talk to the guys that really know what they're talking about. And no better crew to talk to than the guys from North Shore Prep Report, Cass Hargis and Mike McMillan. And guys, a lot of action in the 985 area last night. So, Mike, you tell me where to start, and we'll take a look at everything.
Look, we'll start in Division 1 here. You know, that's the big boys here. There's some outliers here, but I have to start out with St. Paul's, you know, the 9 seed. They've had a really good regular season. They just missed a bye. Cass and I talked about this on Wednesday on our show, Cass, and we were kind of excited about this matchup. And Pineville had put up some points, but they had given up, you know, a lot in that district they play in. And this game was not even close. St. Paul's kind of put it on them early. Cody Corrales did, you know, what we call Cody Corrales stuff. I think he ran 114 yards on 12 carries, 3 touchdowns. If I had to guess, most of that was in the first half. They were up big. Brady Pearson had a big day. He had 2 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown. And he was 11 of 12 for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns. So not a bad day by the young man, the junior quarterback at St. Paul's.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think it was 49-0 before half, which that was kind of surprising, to be honest with you. I didn't think it would be as bad as it ended up being. But man, if you're St. Paul's, you couldn't ask for anything better. You get the running game going. I think Corrales actually went over 3,000 yards for his career.
Yep.
And I think he's like 30 some odd yards short of the St. Paul's single season record that he'll be going for next year. But it sets up a matchup next week with Evangel. That's going to be very interesting. And if St. Paul's obviously going to go up there, they're going to try to run it. That's what they do. But if they could throw the ball and stretch the field, I know they hit Villa for a big touchdown pass last night. If they can add that, they're going to have to do that to go beat Evangel. They're not just going to be able to sit back there and run it. But running game and defense travel, so sets up a big one next week for them going to Evangel.
Yeah, I thought that was big. You know, Brennan Villa having 7 catches, over 100 yards and a touchdown. He really allows them to stretch the field, and that that to me is going to be the game changer in the postseason as they get further and further along, where you're not just going to be able to ground and pound it a little bit. You're going to have to, extend the defense and get them to not put 8-9 guys in the box. So that's really important. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. St. Paul's has what I believe is a very good secondary. Young man Christian Martin had an interception return last night for a touchdown. He's really good. Their other cornerback is a sophomore as well. They both have Division I offers. Aiden Brooks, all district guy last year. He's heading off to college to play at free safety. He's a ball hawk back there. It's a great matchup. I'm really looking forward to that one.
It is. And looking at Evangel's schedule, they went 8-2. The 2 losses, there was their lowest point total of the season. They scored less than 33 points. Every other game they scored more than 40. So the blueprint's there for St. Paul's. We got to go play defense. That's a lot easier said than done, but they're going to have to try to muck it up and turn it into just almost a rock fight and try to keep that game in the 20s if they're going to have a chance.
Yeah, I kind of, my thought process, and we'll talk about some other teams that I feel like this too. You almost don't want a 70-yard touchdown run because, then you're just slinging the ball back and forth and trying to make stops and you're going to have to find a way to be a little bit methodical, keep the ball out of these high-scoring offenses' hands and still be productive, right? So as an offensive coordinator, it's a tricky one.
It is. And the more and longer that Pop Houston is on the sideline for Evangel, the better it is for St. Paul. So whatever you've got to do to keep him in that prolific offense on the sideline, you got to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, here's another matchup. Captain Shreve and Hammond. It was one we were intrigued about. We know what Captain Shreve does. We know what they can do on offense. Cass, that is a 14-13 game at the end of the first quarter. At halftime, it's 41-21. There's 62 points in the first half. And look, we talked about this, right? It's playoffs. You don't want to get in a situation where you just have to outscore the other guy over and over again. And that kind of happened to Hammond. But, congrats on a great season. They hosted a home game in a playoff. Coach Buckles has that group kind of on the uprise. They've continued to get better and better every year. But Captain Shreve was hitting on all cylinders last night.
Yeah, great night for Hammond, and the fact that you're hosting a playoff game for the first time in a long time. The game starts off, we thought that Hammond could score with them. We knew they were going to have to score, but that offense with Captain Shreve led by Jamaica Plater, that running back, he's unbelievable. He's so good. And those teams, they score points. And we saw it with Parkway, which we'll get to here in a little bit, but you're going to have to outscore those teams, and it was just too much for Hammond. But great year by those guys, and that program is only going to get better under Coach Buckles. Yeah, no, Coach Sharp, athletic director, baseball coach there, does a phenomenal job. They've got a really good athletic program. The next one up, Mandeville. That was I'll tell you what happened. I didn't know any scores, right? We're playing. I saw some stuff at halftime, but we were kind of making some adjustments. So it's the end of the game, and I look at my watch. We're having team meeting, and I look at my watch, and I get a text from Crew Calora's dad that says, "Wait till you see this," right? And that's all he said. And I'm like, I can't get to my phone. I don't know what's going on. But I watched it when I got home last night, and the Skippers put on a performance, and I know we'll talk about them offensively, but defensively, that Thibodeau football team on offense is very good. I'm not saying that holding them to 27 points is a huge feat, but they scored a couple late in that game. Mandeville was hitting on all cylinders. Calora, from what I saw so far, and I haven't been able to watch all the tape, but I think he had at least 4 touchdown passes and another running touchdown. And he ran for one, yep. Luke DeMello had a fantastic night at wide receiver. Jake Giacchetti, another one. Those kids are both juniors, very, very good. Both made some really tough runs, some yards after catch stuff that made them explosive. And then Jaxo Quinn, we don't talk about him enough. He kind of does everything for them. He'll play some H-back, he'll play some running back, he'll play some tight end. He plays defense. He caught a ball last night for a touchdown as well. Look,
it's the time of the year where you just get excited about everything. But this Mandeville team, look, I don't think anymore that they can't be led by their quarterback. I think now that's who they are, and they're fully capable of going and doing damage because of their quarterback.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. You could see it coming. We talked about the last few weeks. He just kept getting better and better and better and better. He's no longer a freshman quarterback, no matter what his report card says. Yeah. But I feel like he grew up last night. It became his team. A huge win down there at Thibodeau, a team that comes in 8-2, a really good football team with a good defense, obviously a good offense. But obviously outside of the offense for Mandeville putting up points, you're right, that defense for Mandeville really played well last night. And look, they got a tough challenge next week going up to Neville. Calora is going to see coverages and looks that he hasn't seen before. Like that's just what Coach Collins and those guys do up there at Neville. That's going to be a monumental task. But no matter what happens, and I'm not saying they can't go win the game, no matter what happens, the experience for them going to Monroe and playing in that atmosphere, which I know Marshall knows all about. I coached there as a visiting team, and it was awesome. Like, it's a tremendous atmosphere. They're going to get so much valuable experience that's going to help them next year, no matter how Friday night goes. But what a performance from Mandeville. I mean, we thought they could go down there and win. Again, similar to St. Paul's game, I didn't think it would look like this, but it feels like Crew Calora became, Mandeville's quarterback last night.
Yeah, and look, I'll say this, Cass. I think this started maybe not even in week 8, and I'll touch on that, but I think it was after the Hammond loss, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes, coaches hate this, and I hate it, but sometimes those late season losses help you so much more than they hurt you. The following week, they go to St. Paul's, and he has a phenomenal game. They lose by a touchdown, but he proved that he could play with the big boys. And St. Paul's, they're in that group, right?
I think you're right. That was the game that he started being inserted in a running game a little bit more.
And physical.
I think, yes. And that's when it kind of started to come to life, and it all came together for him last night.
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal matchup next week. Neville in those all blacks and those black helmets, man. That's an exciting time. The next matchup, this one was a little surprising to me score-wise. And I know you talked about this as kind of being one of your games that you're really excited about, but Salmon goes to Zachary and just kind of gets it put on him. But I'll say this, and I talked to a reporter at the state volleyball tournament on Thursday who covers Zachary, and he said, nobody knows who Zachary is. They don't even know who Zachary is, right? Because every week it's just something different. And they've had a lot of, penalties and silly things that have happened. But Zachary is a team that's really talented. They have a ton of depth, a great coaching staff. You saw what happened there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't know what Zachary is. Zachary at their ceiling is one of the best football programs in the state. And what Coach Brewerton and those guys have done in creating not just that football program, but everything in that school and that athletic department is top notch. And they've kind of, they had that run late 20 teens where they won a few state championships, and they kind of, fell off. They lost to Ruston last year in the playoffs. And even this year they finished 7-3, but it wasn't a clean 7-3. It almost felt like last night they kind of reasserted themselves and just reminded everyone that, hey, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. And they set up a matchup with Denham Springs next week that Denham Springs is the 4 seed. I don't know how fired up they are about seeing Zachary there.
There's some fireworks.
Yes, Zachary can play to their ceiling. This is what they're capable of. And for Salmon, you got Dejon Howard coming back for you again next year. And I think it was like 48-9 at one point. It really got away from them.
Yeah.
But again, the fact that they were able to win, going back to week 10, they beat Chalmette the way they do. They take the trip to Zachary. Just going to play in these types of environments in these games, it's so invaluable, and it's going to help them moving forward. Great year by those guys and Coach Shooter. But it feels like Zachary last night just kind of reintroduced themselves to the state.
And I'll say this, Coach Shooter and that group, they did a great job all season. The summer, I can promise you, everyone will know who Dejon Howard is. Yep. He's going to light up 7-on-7 stuff, and he'll be out there. They get Rayshawn Coleman, one of their better wide receivers, back as well. They lose some guys. They lose some guys in the secondary, which hurts. But here's the biggest thing for me that I'm excited about. Salmon will be in 4A next year.
Right. I think they're going to be in our district.
Yeah. So once again, 7-4A. We'll talk about that later. But
Wild.
Slidell goes to Hahnville. Don't be fooled by that score. Slidell went blow for blow. This reminded me a lot of the Warren Easton game that they had earlier in the season. Coach Page and that group have done such an incredible job. And I think about who they were last year and who they are now. And Coach Soper at Hannon talks about this. Is it better, right? You look what Slidell did this year. Nobody wanted to play Slidell. Nobody wanted a part of that. And last night they kind of showed they were clicking on all cylinders, right? Ricky Williams had a good game at quarterback. Stanley Lang comes in, who's the backup quarterback, is also a junior. He has a great game. Carlos Flemings Jr. goes off. Jaquan Jones runs the ball. And then I have to give my big man, Jeremiah Birdlow, out a shout out. He had 2 touchdowns last night. He's been hurt the last couple of weeks. He's heading to UL Lafayette as a commit there. He'll be fun to watch in college. And I think UL Lafayette's just a start for him. He's an incredibly gifted young man.
Yeah, the most impressive thing what Slidell did last night, Hahnville got out to a 24-0 lead. And it was 24-6 at halftime, and Slidell comes out to start the second half, and they get it to 31-26. And it's in the fourth quarter. You're thinking they're going to go and make a play, and then Hahnville just kind of started to pull away. But yeah, that score, it wasn't indicative of how competitive the game got, especially in the third quarter. And we talked about the Slidell offense, Ricky Williams at quarterback, and Lang. They played both of them. Both of them played well, and obviously you have Jaquan Jones back there to hand it off to him. But this Slidell team, man, you're right. No one wanted to play them. They were so much better than what it's been, and the job that they've done with that program, it's only going to get better. But very impressive showing. Obviously, there's no moral victories, and I'm sure those guys are upset. But the fact that you go to Hahnville, you go down 24-0, and then you claw back and you get within a 1-score game again, just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to Coach Page. What he's building there from a culture standpoint, I'll tell you right now, Slidell will not flinch. I don't, him and that staff, they coach their butts off, man. It doesn't matter if they're up 20 or down 20. They're going to play hard.
Yep, and that shined through all year.
Yep.
I mean, you playing with a backup quarterback in the middle of your season trying to go win a district title. Don't flinch. We go win games in overtime. We go down to Hahnville. It's 24-0. Nothing's going right when we get off the bus. We get it back and we make it a ball game in the second half. So, yeah, no doubt, Coach Page and those guys have done a tremendous job.
Yeah, look, program-changing season for those guys for sure. Kind of springboard them for next year. Covington heads to Parkway. We knew what Parkway could do offensively. We said this. Can you go blow for blow on offense? Look, I'll be honest. When I saw 30 points from Covington, I was like, oh, okay. They put up some points. It's hard to win a football game when you give up 51.
It is, and that they got pulled into a Parkway style game.
Mm-hmm.
Covington's chance, much like Hammond and Captain Tree,
yep.
They were going to have to keep it in the 30s because Covington, such inconsistent up and down year, whatever you want to call it, but they were so talented and they just couldn't defensively. They just couldn't hold on long enough for Parkway to give their offense time to figure it out and score enough points. But that's a tough trip going up there. And it was a 1-score game most of the game. Parkway started to kind of roll late, and those offenses up there, tremendously talented. They score a lot of points. And to go up there and win, you've got to get them to play your game. And Covington's chance was to win this game, 30-27 or something along those lines. Yeah. They weren't going to outscore them. It just didn't happen for them.
Yeah, no, it's a tough ending for them. I thought they were really talented, and look, they've got a lot of kids coming back.
Especially in the secondary too. That secondary is
elite. And there's a kid, a wide receiver, Brashawn Weary, who is he's going to be really good. Juwan Brock got a lot of hype, and he as he should. He's very talented. He's a Texas State commit, but I'm excited about Weary. And Fussel's coming back for his senior year, right after a whole season under his belt and get healthy. That offensive line was young and all new. That was a big thing for them this year, so they'll have some experience there. It's an exciting time. Let's move to Division II. Here's one that St. Michael's. I was getting some text last night from a buddy of mine. His kid's there. St. Michael's kind of just handled that game, but I got to give LaRondra some credit. And here's another one I'm really excited about next year. Tidarius Holland. If you don't know that name, get used to it. He went off a little bit last night. LaRondra's biggest issue really, and I know it's no excuse for Coach Powell. He's not going to use it, but they're decimated with injuries at key spots. And I'll let you break the news since we couldn't do it early in the week. But Ryland James did not play. Go ahead, Coach.
No, he didn't. He had surgery on his knee about a week and a half ago. So obviously he was out for them that year. He'll be ready to go for next year. But it wasn't just him. They had 3 or 4 guys that were out, like key players. They went to St. Michael with a skeleton crew. Talking to Coach Powell, he said the good thing is that we had to play a few games with this crew already, and the bad thing is that we had to play a few games with this crew. Like it's just a tough deal, and he's not going to make excuses. This game was close early, and just the depth, and you just can't. It's hard to play 4 quarters when you're almost playing with one hand tied behind your back. But those guys, that program's in a great spot. Those guys are always going to be physical. They're going to be well coached, and they got some playmakers that. The future's bright for this program as well. Maybe felt like it might just be a year early this year, but moving forward, and if they can get healthy and stay healthy, moving forward, this LaRondra program is going to be in a very good spot. And look, good on St. Michael's. We talked earlier; they were the 9 seed last year and lost to Hannon in the same exact spot this year. They were able to kind of put the game away and move on. So good for them for moving on. But not the best ending for LaRondra, but definitely the future is going to be bright under Coach Powell.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Look, we'll speed this up. I'm going to get Marshall back on track here time-wise. But Lakeshore, let's talk about this. Next week, the Cecilia, Lakeshore, Franklinton triangle continues, right? Cecilia, won that state championship last year. Once again, they're that mid-seed. It's like, gosh, dang it, man. Nobody wants to play Cecilia again. They've got, 2 years in a row of really good success. So, but I'm excited about this one. I think this will be our North Shore game of the week. We'll have Roger Glenn there covering that one live. I'm excited about Lakeshore there.
Yeah, no, Lakeshore, we know what they're going to be. It's going to be big, physical, running right at you with Birdie Loudmilk. At quarterback, they're going to play hard. Cecilia is probably a little bit underseeded because of the schedule they played. And they went on the road all last year through the playoffs and won a state championship. So this is a big-time matchup in just the second round. Like Lakeshore better be ready to go for this game.
Yeah. No, Franklinton gets a big win last night. Huge congrats to Jacob Crane. He breaks the all-time passing record at Franklinton. Joins Terrence McGee for over 5,000-yard club. Massive success for him. They kind of handle Rain 51-14. That's a big matchup next week with Jennings, and Franklinton gets it at home, which I think is, having that 8 seed was really, really important.
Absolutely. And the offense looked like what you wanted it to look like last night if you're Coach Salt and Jacob Crane. This is a big-time matchup. Jennings is a good football team, but the fact that they don't have to go to Jennings, they have it in their backyard, that could be the difference. But, again, Franklinton's starting to play at their best ball at the right time.
Well, and look, to me, there's 2 really good atmospheres. If you can make it to Amite City or you can make it to Franklinton, you get there on a Friday night, it's a good time for sure.
No doubt.
Pearl River loses a tough one. This one was a bit surprising to me, honestly. I thought that Pearl River had the key ingredients to get that win and run the ball, but I've got to give Opelousas a ton of credit. They held Pearl River to under 100 yards of total offense.
And Opelousas, they always their schedule early on. They play Turlings, Alexandria, Zachary, Natchitoches Central. So talk about being underseeded. Like that's a good football team that comes in as the 19th seed. Like that's just the product of the power ratings. But you're right. They go in against into Pearl River. Pearl River's trying to find their first playoff home win. It's been a little bit, hadn't it?
Yeah. It'd be their second ever, right?
Right.
They've got one in their history.
Yeah, they just could not get it done. But great season by those guys.
And look, Gage Duran, I love that kid. I hope he gets an opportunity to play at the next level. And I don't know if that's on offense or defense, but he's really good, as well as Braden Hutchinson, their quarterback and defensive back. I talked to it was you, and I talked to Coach Soper a little bit about this. That Hutchinson kid, if it's 15 years ago, he might be on a campus in December,
right? No doubt.
As an early enrollee. So, and then look, let's talk about this one real quick. Coach Michael at Albany. Look, Bruley, that's a tough matchup. They weren't ready for that as a program yet, but they get in the playoffs. They get playoff experience. And you touched on this. You get an extra week of practice. Like, you're practicing when nobody else is practicing. And that's so important for the kids and the culture to know that the playoffs, it's not a goal, it's a standard.
Right. It's attainable. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. And that week of practice, just practicing that long, practicing for 11 weeks in a season, ends up being about 15 weeks when you add it all up. But that is huge for them moving forward. Coach Michael's doing a good job of getting that program off its feet. And now that they know what it looks like, they know what the expectations are under Coach Michael at Albany. It is to make the playoffs and go win a playoff game.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those kids need to know what it feels like when you expect it of them. We'll move to Division III. This was my shocker of the night. I love Pine and coach over there. They do such a good job. Christian Williams has a couple touchdowns last night. He's going to be missed. He's been a really good one. He's a good baseball player too. But this one hurt me a little bit because I love that group. I love those kids and the program and the community. So that's a tough way to go, when you're kind of the favorite there. But, kudos to Kaplan. They threw the ball well last night and, got behind the secondary a little bit. And that ended up kind of being what cost Pine the game.
Didn't see that one coming. Obviously, the fact that they could lose a game. If you play, you got a chance to lose. But I didn't see that. I thought Pine, those guys did such a good job all year long. Feel like you wanted them to get rewarded with a playoff win. Obviously, you got to go out there and earn it. I think there was a few turnovers somewhere in there too that led to some Kaplan points. Kaplan's a good football program. They're a good football program. They're tough. They're physical. They make the drive all the way out to Pine and get a big win.
Yeah, and then Jules Sumner, they're going to host Slaughter. Slaughter gets a win over Pope John Paul. I'll touch on Pope John Paul real quick, but what Coach Pygott is doing there with numbers, size, scheme, he's continued to develop that program year after year after year. Like, they're not going anywhere. Like, don't be afraid, Pope fans and kids. Like, it's going to continue to happen, and they're moving up to 3A. So
That's right.
That'll be a bit different, but that means you've got more kids, right? So it's a good thing that happens. The Jules Sumner Slaughter matchup, I'll say this. Slaughter just saw a unique style of wing tee from Pope John Paul. They're about to see a completely different style of wing tee from Jules Sumner. And what I mean by that, it reminds me of the 90s. You had the Destran wing tee, you had St. James wing tee, you had South Lafourche wing tee, and they were all different, right? Coach Gailey and that group at St. James, they ran that so well for so long. They were kind of the best around. But what Jules Sumner does when they hit the edge and you don't contain or you don't force, it's over. Javon Dyson is gone, and you're just going to see the back of number 3's jersey.
Yeah, they're so fast, so athletic, and if you defensively are not in the right spot, if you get your eyes in the wrong place, it's not an 8-yard gain, it's a touchdown. That is, you'd like to think playing a team like Pope John Paul before playing Jules Sumner, when you think of running that type of offense, that it's going to help you. I don't know how much last week's prep is going to help them for this.
Nope. And I'll say this. I love Pope's offensive line. They're big and they're physical. Jules Sumner's different. Like, those guys, they're when they pull, they're quick. Like, they get to their spot, and it's really good. Got to give Jeremiah Brooks a big shout out. He plays fullback. He's another one averaging 8 yards a carry. They've got 4 running backs averaging over 8 yards a carry. It's wild. And then their quarterback, Eli Nealon, who I think is a phenomenal athlete. When they want to throw it, they can, and they've got some guys that can go get it. Jakari Brown is really impressive. He blocks a lot out there at wide receiver in that offense, but he'll fake a Stark block on you real quick, and he's over top.
Get behind. Yeah. I think they're set up to make a run in these playoffs.
Oh yeah,
I really do.
I love it. I love, and look, they're on the opposite side of LCA, so it's prime for the taking. Next matchup, Amite City. You see what they did to Cohen. You know Cohen well. You saw them play earlier this year. Big night for Drew Palmer last night. I think he's the key for them. They've got a lot of talent. A lot of athletes are well coached. Drew's a really good quarterback. When he's confident and he makes his reads and makes his throws, they're a different football team. He threw for 190 yards and three touchdowns last night, ran for 1. Big performance by him. Amite's going to do what Amite does. every year. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and when you got a quarterback like Palmer and he has the night like he had last night, they're going to have talent everywhere. Like that's a given. But when you have someone calling the shots back there, pulling the trigger, that's making the right decisions, and the main thing, not turning the football over and getting it in and out of his hands and then using his legs, they're tough to stop. Very, very interesting matchup when they go to Lafayette Renaissance Charter because Larka, as they're called, they're athletic as well. But A-Meet, again, it's the A-Meet time of year. It feels like this, it's getting close to Thanksgiving. A-Meet starts winning football games. So I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I hope that whole community travels and supports that group. They certainly deserve it. The next matchup, Northlake Christian, big win over St. Louis Catholic. That game wasn't close. It broke out early. You talk about momentum in a game. It's the opening kickoff. We don't cover it well. They run it back to like the 50, and our senior soccer player kicker, who weighs about 135 pounds, annihilates the returner on the sideline. He fumbles.
That'll get him going.
We recover it and we score the next play, right? And I didn't have the kicker with a big hit on the bingo card for momentum changer,
We've
but
got to
big shout out to my boy Braden Finkley for being tough. He was on the bench for a little while after that, but he realized he might not be able to run through everybody. But
it's all right. It was worth it. I saw that Northlake ran 22 plays. Was that right?
Yeah, we had 9 plays in the first half.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you some stats here. Cam Casnave, 12 carries, 220 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jordan Willis had 2 interceptions. He returned 1 for a touchdown. He ran another touchdown. Charlie Gilmore, a 72-yard touchdown. He had 2 catches for 40 yards. The thing about Northlake Christian is they've got some guys in different spots that are guys that can really do some damage. We talked about this a little bit, and this is one of those, how do you handle it, right? I mean, now you travel to Dunham. It's an offense that can score. Now, Northlake Christian brings a pretty good defense that's been really good all season. But Northlake's scores last night, a 45-yard run, a 71-yard run, a 62-yard run, a 2-yard run, a 53-yard interception return for a touchdown, a 72-yard run, and a 92-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Wow.
So, it was chunks. Lots of chunks. I felt like our defense was on the field all night, but the offense just kept scoring fairly quickly, and turnovers do that. But big matchup. St. Louis Catholic. Hats off to them for coming and competing. But Northlake was firing on all cylinders. Big props to the offensive line. Those kids have really stepped up the last 2 weeks, and you're kind of starting to see that size paying advantage. They're playing with a little mean streak now, and that's different.
Yeah, with some confidence too. And look, we're going to need it next week, and I don't have to tell you that, but that Dunham team, that Dunham offense, they've only scored less than 40 points one game, and it was against St. Charles, and that was their only loss of the year. So with Elijah Haven at quarterback, like you know what you're getting into. But if you got there, play with a little nasty streak, control the football on the ground, and try to push them around a little bit. And again, similar to Pop Houston at Evangel, when he's not on the field, you like your chances. So trying to keep Elijah Haven on the sideline, that'll be a big task for Northlake.
Yeah, and as a coach, obviously, I'll be watching some St. Charles Catholic film. But one thing, and I don't even have to turn the film on, I know who St. Charles Catholic is, right? And I know what they do. They're very disciplined, and they just do their job at every position. They don't overreact, and that seemed to work well. So I don't know. I'm going to see if we can file something with LHSAA to have 12 on defense.
There you go. Just put him out there until I tell you can't.
Call it the D1 quarterback rule. He's a Division I quarterback right now playing us. So I'm excited about that, though. It'll be a really fun night at Dunham. The last 2 here, Bugaloo. So I'll say we saw this coming. It kind of happened all season. When they played some opponents at their level, they played really well. They're just not ready as a program yet, to get there, but they'll get there. And then we don't have the graphic on it. I'll update it, but St. Helena gets a big win last night. They score almost 60 points. they can score it. They've got a sophomore quarterback who's really, really good. It's an exciting matchup. I'm excited, for that group to see what they do, because that playoff matchup with where do I have them at?
They got Gina.
With Gina, Gina's a 1 seed, but if you can score it and you can put up 60, you got a shot.
Yeah, well, and Marshall could tell us all about the Gina Giants because they're going to do the same thing. This might be a complete shoot. It might look like a basketball score with these two because St. Helena's got some athletes they can score. Gina's doing the same thing. So I like the over in this one.
Oh yeah, no, it's exciting. I just realized I looked at myself on the camera for the first time. I look like a referee. I'm gonna have to change up an outfit. I look like a head judge here.
Yeah, look, and Gina, like they can score in bunches now, but they also give up points too. So, and it's a stylistic clash, St. Helena and Gina. But I mean, that's what the regional round's all about. Is who are y'all? How do y'all play? All right, let's do it. So, I mean, that's what you love about the playoffs is these teams that may not know each other, but look, that's why we're here. So we can try to preview these as much as possible. Cass Hargis and Mike McMillan of the North Shore Prep Report. Cass is also part of the Talking Ball Y'all show. That's do that on Sunday nights and Tuesday nights. You should definitely watch that if you don't already. Mike and Cass do a really great job. The 985, 504, and beyond. So, guys, thanks so much for recapping the North Shore. And look, we'll do it again next week with
absolutely. Hey, Marshall, real quick. We've got two volleyball teams playing the state championships today, SSA and Slidell at 4:30 and 7 o'clock in Lafayette. Those are two really good programs and good coaches. So we're looking forward to keep representing the North Shore, man.
Yeah, great tournament in the Cajun Dome. So follow North Shore Prep Report for some volleyball action taking place this weekend. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thanks to Cass Hargis and Mike McMillan of the North Shore Prep Report helping us recap everything that happened there. A lot of teams in action in the first weekend, and we'll keep it going with them in the second round. And Chasten Tavares had Vinton and DeQuincy last night for their game of the week. And Chasten with that game with Vinton being able to go on the road or go into the first round and get a first round playoff win. I know that was really exciting for y'all to witness in person.
Yeah, look, that was a game that was we knew it would be a lot of fun going into it. And look, Vinton hadn't won a playoff game, hadn't hosted a playoff game since 2014, and they were able to get the win there against their arch rival. You know, it's not often you see the same two teams square up in back-to-back weeks. It was actually 21-17, the Big Cat Classic the week prior, and Vinton was able to get the win last night. Look, they pretty much dominated that game from start to finish. Really, it came down to DeQuincy's inability to score inside of the 30-yard line. And that was kind of the same story, same movie from a week ago that kind of plagued DeQuincy in that matchup. In the first matchup, DeQuincy had 4 red zone trips, only got 3 points out of it. More of the same this week for the DeQuincy Tigers, and Vinton was able to roll. Jaden Briggs was really good in the game. The defense for Vinton really stepped up. And look, it's no more, as Coach Tyler Laverne told us last night of the postgame show, it's no longer about, trying to rewrite the history book of winning a playoff game, hosting a playoff game, hitting that benchmark. It's the new standard there in Vinton. They're trying to look. They got an 8 seed, and now they get to host Jonesboro Hodge. So hopefully, just more to come for the Vinton Lions.
Look, you mentioned defense, and I thought about this last night, seeing the score. Barb goes up to Caddo Parish, takes on Captain Shreve. The scouting report on Barb all year was, with Jalinden Gray, they can score, but can they stop anybody? And a lot of their matchups throughout the regular season, they weren't able to do so. So to go on the road to Captain Shreve last night, to Northwood, and take on a Northwood team that put up 21 points against the 2 seed Division II select Loyola last week. Barb goes up, holds them to 3 touchdowns, and does what they do on offense, and the Bucks are moving on.
Yeah, first off, sorry, but I don't know what happened. The audio cut out again. I'm not sure. Look, Barb, we talked about it all year. They were going to be a tough out no matter who it was, just because of what they were able to do offensively, and it was just if they could find enough defense. Now, obviously, this is another situation of how our divisions are kind of set up now, where it's 4A versus 5A. And Barb, a not great 5A, but they go in and they're able to kind of impose their will throughout. I actually picked Barb to win that game, and it might have been the only one I got right of the. I think I picked 4 upsets, and I think that was the only one that came to fruition. But look, I thought Barb. Look, they came out. I knew they had a lot of offense. It was another great night for Jordan Griffin running the football. It seems like they found something with Griffin running the football. And look, they were able to do it. Now they get the daunting task of going to take on West Monroe, which I'm sure is going to be look, that could be a fun matchup. Again, Barb just can score so many points offensively. That is a fun team to watch.
Yeah, and again, yeah, just such an impressive showing for them to go up to Northwood and face a team with talent. Kyron Johnson's a really good running back. And their quarterback is good as well. So a fantastic road win for the Buccaneers. Jennings will move on as well. They get a win against St. Martinville last night. Also, a couple of the teams that you've been following a lot this year had bye weeks between Kinder, Iowa, Hamilton Christian, and Lake Charles College Prep. But they all have top 10 seeds, and they'll enter the postseason now here in the regional round after earning those first round byes.
Yeah, look, when you look at Jennings, they've kind of had an up and down year. They've kind of weathered the storm a little bit, and St. Louis Catholic had them on the rope a couple of weeks ago, and they were able to come from behind and score like 20 unanswered points, and were able to get the win in that game. But look, they've I'll be interested to see what they can do with that matchup versus Franklinton. DeRitter also got a win last night over Eunice. I mentioned this on our pigskin preview the other night. The big key for that game was it was a 1-point game in the regular season. DeRitter did not have a healthy Connor Rushford, and look, they were able. He's healthy, and he had a great game, 200-plus yards, a touchdown on the night, and DeRitter was able to get the win. But you look at some of these other teams. I mean, Iowa is going to get a matchup with Northwest. Northwest rolled this past week. Hamilton Christian gets St. Frederick. Lake Charles College Prep, they've got an interesting matchup with Leesville. I think that might be the game we end up doing, an all Southwest Louisiana matchup. It's a very interesting matchup on a multitude of levels because both of these teams can score. It's defensively. What can they bring to the table? Obviously, there will be a ton of athletes all over the field. Leesville quarterback Terrell Broom has had an unbelievable year. He set a couple of different records there for the Wampus Cats. So we'll see. We'll see how that matchup ends up playing out. I think Lake Charles College Prep's going to have just too many athletes there on the perimeter, too much speed for Leesville. But we'll wait and see. That's why you play the games on the field. Kinder will get Kaplan. Obviously, they've got a big matchup potentially with Erath in the quarterfinals, which. Again, that is you can't get caught looking ahead to that matchup because Kaplan always a really good football team. Welsh will be at Logansport. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of really good matchups in this second round here around the Southwest Louisiana area.
Yeah, that's a particular matchup between Lake Charles College Prep and Leesville with both of their two quarterbacks. Their games aren't exactly similar, but both have been super productive here on offense. Another win down there in Division 4, Elton. Elton gets a win over LaSalle. So you've followed the Indians all season. Lemoyne, obviously, as good as advertised. Anything as we move through November that informs your opinion on how far Elton can go in that bracket?
Elton, for me, is kind of a little bit like Hamilton Christian. They are going to go as far as the star brings them. McKeelan Lemoyne, look, he's been really good this entire year. He's had some unbelievable games. We'll see. I mean, he kind of had some. They didn't perform as well at the end of the year. They kind of struggled. Obviously, the schedule was a little bit backloaded, but. Look, we'll certainly see. Anytime you have to play McKeelan Lemoyne, that's a tall task. Same thing with like Hamilton Christian. They've got Javon Vital, and I mean they've got guys around him, but it all starts and stops with Vital. And again, as I said, I think Elton's kind of the same way.
Yeah, and Hamilton will get St. Fred's next week. That should be something that matches up well for Hamilton Christian. And then we'll see what the McKeelan Lemoyne show continues through the postseason. And Chaston, few teams kind of, weren't able to get wins last night. And ends the season for those seniors and for those coaching staff. So anything to take away from the teams from Southwest Louisiana that ended their season last night?
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a obviously anytime your season comes to an end, it is extremely tough. Teams like St. Louis Catholic, who obviously Coach Chris Truex came in and did a really good job with those guys. They had some seniors in their quarterback. Connor Boudreaux is a senior. They got a couple there, especially on the offensive side of the football. Still a young team. Westlake's another team that they've got some seniors as well. They're still kind of also a younger team. So anytime you obviously lose seniors, it sucks. And losing that last game of the year, nobody wants to lose the last game of the year. Everybody wants to go to the Superdome, but it only happens for 8 teams throughout the year, and so it doesn't end well for everybody. But look, these are memories you take for an entire lifetime.
Exactly. Pigskin preview, is that on the schedule for this week? And what do y'all have planned for the postseason edition of that show, which continues to pack out the walk-ons?
Yeah, look, it continued last week to bring us a really good crowd with DeQuincy and Vinton. It was standing room only. We were sitting people outside. It was awesome. Look, we're going to continue to go. I think again, we're still trying to work out who we're doing this week. It might end up being Leesville Lake Charles College Prep. We're kind of waiting on the final things on that one. And if it is, Lake Charles College Prep has already packed out the house one time this year, so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll get to visit with some coaches and have a lot of fun for 1 hour there at Walk-Ons.
Yeah, look, I enjoy watching the preview just to kind of get me caught up on what's happening that week. But one of my favorite things is to see the crowd shots and see everyone that's filling out the walk-ons there. That's so cool that's been able to be something for those fans and something for you and Patrick to bring to the Lake Charles area this season and it continues to grow. And like I said, it's fun to watch y'all, but also fun to see how much everyone else is enjoying it. And that's what it's all about is the fan interest in this sport. So,
yes.
So yeah, it's Pigskin preview every Wednesdays. You can watch it live, or you can watch it on demand afterwards. It's a great way to get caught up on the lake area. And they've got a lot of single digit seeds in there. So, check out the Pigskin preview on Wednesdays from the Walk-Ons in Shreveport. You can follow Chasten online, and you'll be able to catch that show. And also, they do the game of the week on 92.9 The Lake. Chasten, thanks so much for being patient and spending some time with us. And we'll talk to you next week to recap the regional round.
Anytime, Marshall. Appreciate you as always.
Yep. Have a good day, Chasten.
You as well.
Yeah, some just fantastic teams that have continued to perform well throughout the regular season. In Lake Charles, a lot of them through to the second round. So can't wait to see some of those top talented teams and see what kind of runs they can make. Plenty of top talented teams in the Baton Rouge area, and who better to discuss that with than Jace Lejeune of Gridiron Football USA, the Gridiron Football All-American game, and had a lot of golly, the commits for that game continue to come in. I mean, that it's going to be a true all-star game there in late December. But let's look at some of the games from the Baton Rouge area last night. Episcopal, their season ends. They're in the playoffs. A few other teams that kind of matched up with teams outside the region like St. Amant, East Ascension. St. Amant loses, East Ascension wins. A lot of teams with bye weeks in that area. Parkview is in action against Darbone Woods. But, Jace, I'll let you kind of get us started on the 225 and what stood out to you in the bye district round.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Marshall, I mean, a lot of teams on bye in the Baton Rouge area. That comes to show you there's been a good year in the Baton Rouge area when you got a lot of teams on bye in the first round. And you kind of have to, kind of pick slim pickings a little bit around the area. But I did have the pleasure of calling Episcopal and De La Salle last night. So I knew I was going to have that game. So it made it easy for me to pick calling that game for Episcopal. But it was just a bad draw for Episcopal. They had a home seed, but they played a De La Salle Cavalier team that their record is really deceiving. They played like I talked to coach before the game for De La Salle, and they might have been Coach Jarrett, and they might have been the best 0-5 team in the state way the season started. They had to play Central and St. Paul's and Shaw, and you just kind of go all down the list, and like, man, it doesn't get any easier. But they're able to right the ship a little bit in their district play. They did lose to John F. Kennedy. It was their only loss down the stretch. But this was a 4-16. I was really that did not look like a. Their offensive line is really good. They are big. They're physical. They have 3 running backs, Marshall, that have over 500 yards rushing this year, including their district offensive MVP leading the way. Their defense, they have a 6-foot. He's a sophomore. He's about 6'2", 330 pounds, 320 pounds, right in the middle, playing nose guard. And it's tough to move him, I can tell you that. And the Knights had trouble doing that. But a really good defense as well. I mean, to be honest with you, it wouldn't shock me if they make some noise and make it things interesting when they're redeemed next round, because that is a really deceiving seed at the 18 seed. And Episcopal was without their top wide receiver, Jeremy Mitchell, who was their top deep threat, and he had the flu. Episcopal's kind of dealing with the flu this week as well, and you can kind of tell pregame that there just wasn't really the energy, the boot really on the home sideline. So, and De La Salle was able to pounce on the Knights early. They got a touchdown, then a turnover on down, scored another touchdown, and they never looked back. De La Salle, pretty dominant fashion there to win that football game, 45-14. Like you mentioned, other scores around the Baton Rouge area you talked about, Washita and San Juan. Washita was another team that's really deceiving me because of their record, because they played all those great teams in 2-5A. I knew that was going to be a great matchup with them. And Santa Maria and Washita was able to prevail there. So, I mean, they had a couple of games that were worth mentioning. Central as well, cruised to a first round win over Dutchtown too. So those are just some of the scores that really stood out, at least in the 2-2-5.
Yeah, and peeking at a few second round matchups that I may want to get your opinion on. So Bel Air actually gets what's technically an upset over Patrick Taylor. Their reward is a trip up to Messmer Stadium to play the Flyers of Loyola College Prep. Any super duper early thoughts about that matchup? And then the same question with Brother Martin, who will go to who actually would come to Alexandria and take on the Trojans in week 2, which is a Catholic League District 2-5A matchup, which we seem to get every year, but this will be another good edition of that. Any really, really early thoughts about those two matchups in particular?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Bel Air, Marshall. It's been a long time coming for Bel Air. The last playoff win for Bel Air was 2003. And I can give you a little trivia answer here. Who was the last coach? Last question, basically. Who was the last coach to win a playoff game at Bel Air?
I was in high school then, so I have no idea. Yeah.
He was actually my dad, Ron Lejeune.
Wow.
So he was the last coach to win a playoff game at Bel Air. So that streak finally comes to an end. But like you mentioned, Marshall, congratulations. You got to play Loyola College Prep, who's been really been on fire this year. Bryce Restovich, their quarterback, has been playing as one of the best quarterbacks in the state. They got a lot of receiving weapons as well. So it's going to be tough. It's a tall task for Bel Air, but a great win for Coach and Coach Matevia and the Bengals get a win there. But that is going to be a tall task next week against Loyola College Prep. But, hey, you got to play the games. You got to see what happens there. And what was the other game you mentioned?
And knowing what you know about Liberty.
Liberty.
What does that win for Brother Martin say about their team getting the win over Liberty, and does that inform anything with that second round matchup against the defending runner-up Trojans?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw the score, so it's 17-16 with Brother Martin finding a way to win that game against Liberty. I heard there was like a controversial call at the end. If there was a catch, it looked like the Liberty receiver had a catch, had a chance to make a play there. But I knew that was going to be tough for Brother Martin, even if they won the football game, because you can already tell the imprint that Jimmy Zachary has had on Liberty this year. They've had some impressive wins this year. Obviously, the Zachary win, the way that they won that football game earlier this year. Zayden Foster has over 2,000 yards rushing this year. They got an athletic quarterback, some big receivers on the outside. So they're really athletic, and they could really potentially get you on any given Friday night to make things really interesting, like they did against Zachary. So it did not shock me. And I had this game on upset alert because I knew what Liberty is all about. Obviously, Jimmy Zachary has state championship pedigree, but they're really talented and they can get you. But at this point, Marshall, we had a couple coaches on the show. Tyler Lewis, they had to survive a squeaker in overtime against Natchitoches Central last night. But it's just all about surviving in advance. Like it doesn't matter how ugly or pretty it looks. None of that matters in playoffs. Live to play another week. And that is what Brother Martin did, and they'll have that opportunity to do that next week. Just find a way to win, and that's what the Crusaders did.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned a 18 seed, dealing with that 18 seed, and Jordan Taylor mentions, ask Cecilia about an 18 seed and how teams approach that. So it's that time of year where, look, you can look at those numbers and try to pick chalk, but it's kind of exciting to see, like you mentioned, Natchitoches Central, a 9 seed. Are going up against the 9 seed. They take into overtime last night. Kaplan and Pine, little upsets like that. St. Helena, 17-16. That's, you really do have to throw that sort of stuff out and just try to look at matchups and coaching staffs and what programs, what programs are going to do in the playoffs. Looking at one more that I wanted to just get your thoughts on. It's out of the Baton Rouge area, but Rummel and Holy Cross. That was a 24-0 kind of intra Catholic League game last night. Rummel will take that win. They'll come to Rapides Parish as well and take on Tioga, who had 2 losses in the regular season and was the 6th seed. So another kind of stylistic program type clash there, but any early thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I know Tioga's really been putting up the points this year. I mean, when Case Malone at quarterback, Kervin Johnson, who committed to LSU, of course, the timing of that, Brian Kelly gets fired and he commits to
the
LSU.
Most odd day that I've ever seen a top recruit commit in my life. Here we are.
Absolutely. So, but Kervin is a big time playmaker. It's going to be interesting to see how Rummel's able to defend him and kind of have a game plan for him. But Rummel, they defeated Holy Cross, shut them out 24-0. With Coach Monica, they're going to run the football. They got a couple of really good running backs. Their defense is really good as well. So it's an interesting conflict of styles, because I know Tioga wants to, make it pretty. And I think Rummel's going to try and make it ugly. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting conflict of styles and see and that's what you get a lot of times in the playoffs, Marshall, a lot of conflict of styles and what style will prevail over the other at this time of year.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing about Tioga. Starting center is a senior, starting quarterback is a senior, starting wide receiver a senior, starting running back a senior, and they're all 3-4 year starters depending on who they are. So, be a great opportunity for the Indians to defend their home turf and defend that top 10 seed, that 6th seed. What's new this week with the bowl game? I mentioned we're starting to see those stars, those guys with those 3 and 4 star ratings start to commit and really start to shape this roster. So what's the latest with the bowl game, as it'll be just about a month and a half away?
Yeah, I mean, at this time of year with we talked about it last week, Marshall, but I mean, at this time of year, team seasons are starting to end, and so I'm getting a lot more questions. Hey, are there still spots available for the bowl game? Well, it kind of depends on the position. So we are pretty much wrapping up on spots at certain positions, and like I know, like the running back position, like we're pretty much out. We're pretty much out of running backs. We're kind of winding down with quarterbacks, and there's certain positions we still have a lot of spots for. So if we invite you, make sure to contact me and. We do have spots available, but we gotta let me know what position you play and everything, but where we invite you at. But we do have some spots available. But hey, you better jump on it, because there are thinning out as we go, especially each week when the season winds down. But we did make an announcement about Jack Landry committing to play in the bowl game. What a season he's had for ERAF. ERAF's been undefeated, and he's been a huge part of it. this year. So he's one of the starting quarterbacks that will be playing in the bowl game. We're pretty excited about that. So like you mentioned, Marshall, a lot of great talent playing in the bowl game this year. You can keep up with all of our commits. We're going to be posting them more and more frequently, but we got a lot to catch up on. But you go to gridironfootballusa.com and check that out.
Last ones, I'll get you out of here on this. Where are you headed next week? And then your thoughts on Elton and North Iberville in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm still we had the high school playoff show that we did last night, talked to Coach Lewis, Coach Ron Antoine, Westgate, another coach I want to give a shout out to for a big win over Airline, especially after losing to them last year. But I remember we thought about it yet. I mean, because, I might have still, depending on the situation, might have some VSN opportunities too. You never know as well with that. But I'll probably find out kind of late in the week, around Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll probably find out where I'm going and for Gridiron or VSN. But yeah, looking forward to that. And as far as Elton and North Iberville, I'm pretty intrigued by Elton, be honest with you, to make a little bit of a run because McKeown Lemoyne has been really great this year. I think he's leading the state leading rusher this year. We saw him in our camp. He went to our camp at Louisiana Christian before the offseason, and he was the most impressive back at the camp. And we know there's something with this guy, and we kind of knew early on, but we didn't expect him to have the season like he did. But yeah, he's definitely a guy you're going to have to slow down, and he's going to be the guy that Elton's going to go where he goes. If he has a great performance, like it's that type of he kind of carries like the team on the back, and you can kind of tell that as well. Jalen Thomas is committed to play in our bowl game as well at tight end, defensive end, a great two-way player for Elton. So North Iberville's been dealing with some injuries. I know B.J. Melanson is a big-time playmaker for North Iberville, and I think that affected them in that loss to Ascension Christian. So he's been out. So I think it's going to affect things for North Iberville. So that will be an intriguing matchup between Elton and North Iberville. But as far as games are concerned next week, I guess you're going to find out at the same time I'm going to find out.
Hey, well, look, all you got to do is follow Jace Lejeune online, and you'll know everything that he's covering for football around the state of Louisiana. GridironFootballUSA.com if you want to learn more about their publication and also that bowl game coming up December 30th here at Louisiana Christian University here in Pineville. So, Jace, thanks so much for helping us recap. And, man, we got a lot of great games coming up, so can't wait to talk to you again soon, sir.
Absolutely. Surviving advance and playoff time, my favorite time of the year, Marshall, and looking forward to it.
We're not only surviving, we're thriving.
All right, there we go. Love it.
Thank you, Jace.
Absolutely, Marshall. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate Jace Lejeune always with so much knowledge. I seems like I just try to stump him each week, and very rarely am I able to find something that he doesn't know a lot about. And he's got just so much information on the Baton Rouge area. We've got some more Baton Rouge area information for you. Caroline McPherson, who's the founder and publisher of SEC.com, she got to scout a Division III select game last night, and a game that's really super important around the state because the winner of that game goes up against Lafayette Christian, the 1 seed in select Division III, probably, I don't think this is crazy to say, a top 10 team regardless of classification in the entire state, just from what the impressive season that they had, the competition they had. But looking at this by-district game, Caroline, your alma mater, the Timberwolves of D'Arbonne Woods, go on the road to Baton Rouge to take on Parkview. D'Arbonne Woods, they're at a point now where they're used to making these trips. They played in City Park 2 years ago in the playoffs, got to host a playoff game last year. Parkview Baptist, on the other hand, kind of a perennial playoff team going back several years. So a good clash of teams to play, two teams that have really solidified their success here in the past few years, and a really nice matchup last night.
Yeah, this is D'Arbonne Woods has only won one playoff game in the history of D'Arbonne Woods football. And so it was really cool to get to go watch that game. One, because my little brother was playing, and two, just because it was a close game up until halftime. It was something that I was really into because they were making big plays. D'Arbonne knew going into the game that they needed to stop Marquise Franklin. Well, we just couldn't do that. And after half, Their defense for Parkview came through. They held Darbone to 0 points in the second half. And I think they said that he had he was about to hit 400 rushing yards or yards in that game. I can't remember what they said on the announcement, but it was something crazy like that. But he scored all 42 of their points aside from the kicks. So it was really he was really their playmaker. So for next week going into that Lafayette Christian, they can stop him. It won't be that hard, but if they can stop him, then they got a good chance.
Yeah, and talking about the Timberwolves there for a second, I mean, I don't know the exact year, but 10 years ago, this isn't really a varsity football program yet. It's been something that they built from the ground up. I think the school was started in 2009, and since then they've tried to try to get a football program going amongst the student body that, in a lot of cases, didn't grow up playing football, grew up playing baseball, and grew up as athletes, but and maybe just played in town there, but didn't have a junior high program to feed into in high school. And now you look and they've got guys that, every year are elite level players. I love Carson Reiser, one of the offensive linemen. I think he's a college prospect, just watching him play in the Bayou Jam and watching as he's grown over the couple of years. So the Timberwolves have an offense that works. It has an offense that, God, they just relentlessly scored this season, but it also allows them to go on the road and keep up with a team like Parkview, even if defensively they're giving up a lot. That offense, it works. It's worked at different schools. It's worked in different eras. It's worked in different brackets. So this Timberwolves team probably needs to get used to being in the playoffs every year if they keep doing things the way that they've been.
Yeah, and they have a good bit of players that are returning. So last night, Jericho Atkins had a really big game, and he's a junior, so he's coming back. Same thing with their quarterback, Dalton. So they're going to be good next year too. It's not just going to be this year, and hopefully this is something they're going to continue to build throughout. But the game, they had a lot of calls that were missed on both sides, and it led towards the end. It was getting really chippy. So it was definitely physical, and it definitely came down to who had the most grit. And Darbone just fell short this time, but they did put up a good fight.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson too. They're a 2A school in a select bracket with a lot of private schools and things like that, and all their programs. Softball, they go to the finals all the time and have to face off against Calvary. But really, I think that you kind of alluded to it there, is that when you're a program like that, you want those kind of matchups. You want it's a privilege to get to play Parkview in football. It's a privilege to get to play Calvary in almost any sport. So being able to go up against against programs like that and expect to feel like, hey, we belong in this tournament with these kind of teams, it's super encouraging to see. Shifting gears here to your website, seeinsidethesec.com. So we're kind of winding down the SEC season as far as football goes, but all that means for you is that basketball just kicks into high gear. Is that right?
Yeah, LSU women's basketball is getting me really excited for the season. If you've watched a few of their games, they had their third or fourth straight 100-point game, and it's the tied for second 100-point game in a row in the history of the NCAA women's basketball. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's that time of year where we're kind of straddling both sports, but very exciting. And and so you got to cover again one of the best brackets, Division III Select. You got to see one of the best games that took place in the bi-district round. So really appreciate you recapping that game for us and kind of getting some information and getting to cover the game like every single snap is certainly interesting, especially someone in your line of work. SeeInsideTheSEC.com. Visit that site. I do every week. She's got something up constantly covering SEC football players, and also really doing a good job of showing love to the state of Louisiana as well, because most of our athletes are often SEC caliber. So, Caroline, thanks so much for helping us recap that game, and we'll talk to you next week as we move through the playoffs.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Have a good morning. Thanks, Caroline. Always does a great job covering the SEC, and she got to watch her brother play in the playoffs last night. against Parkview Baptist. Parkview Baptist gets the win, but Darwin Woods hopefully a factor in the playoffs in football and really other sports as they move through and continue to grow their program. Had some big games as always in the Shreveport-Bossier area last night, and who better to discuss Shreveport-Bossier athletics than Chris DeMargin, who is the sports director at KSLA in Shreveport. And Chris, Parkview able to kind of hold serve and do what they do on offense last night, getting a win over Covington. So we'll see them as kind of the team that was able to withstand most of District 1-5A. And I know I've asked you this before, but through one round, how good are the Parkway Panthers?
Honestly, Parkway's good. And first of all, my apologies. I was supposed to be on at 8:40. I dozed off for a second and it turned into be more than 10 minutes. And I wake up a few minutes later. It's like 9:15. I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do? I think Parkway's good. I think last night, I don't know if it was jitters for the first playoff game, but they were tied at 10. For about a quarter.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was first round playoff jitters, but I know a lot of Parkway fans are still thinking back to last year when they were the 10 seed. I think West Monroe was 23, and they came in and upset Parkway last year. So I think some Parkway fans still remember what happened last year. But Parkway did eventually pull away in the second half. And they got the win, of course. But there's so many unknowns. There really are. There really are so many unknowns. And 1-5A this year, but I think we'll truly see. And I hate to say this because there are a lot. There were some hard-earned wins in the district by district teams this week, but I think we'll see even more how legitimate 1-5A truly is when it comes to stacking up against the rest of the state this week. When you see the Evangels getting in the mix now, we see Parkway play another game against another opponent. That's just my opinion. But I do think we'll get a better understanding of how legitimate 1-5A really is starting next week, because that's when you'll see again more teams from the district playing, away from their bye.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Captain Shreve too last night, that's a really great win over a Hammond team that's had a really great season. And Plater and what he does well, that's perfect for the playoffs, right?
It really is. It just kind of goes hand in hand with what he's done all season long. He's just such a legitimate threat. He's just so speedy. His footwork is just incredible. Just watching him in person, he just finds holes within less than a millisecond, and able to expose the defense and take advantage of that. I mean, like I said, his footwork is amazing. He knows he's going to Wake Forest. He's I believe he's dead set going to Wake Forest. I think I'm not sure that's public knowledge yet, but yeah, he does have a future in college, obviously. But he's fun to watch, and it's kind of one of those things. It's a perfect balance because you have a good quarterback from Jackson Gaskin, which I don't know if you know his story. He was at there was a quarterback at Captain Shreve who was set to be the starting quarterback. But he left and transferred to Calvary Baptist about 2 weeks before the season started. And Jackson, I believe, was third string from what one of the coaches told me. And they moved him up to the first string because they loved what he impressed head coach Jeremy Wilburn and the staff so much in practice with his ability to throw. And Jackson can throw a deep ball. He really can. He's really capable of doing that. But they have that perfect balance of where – maybe there's not an option for him to throw. It's no problem to give it to Jamarcier. And Jamarcier just takes advantage of every opportunity he gets. And it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful. It's beautiful football.
What do you think about Loyola Prep and their run in this playoff? You can look at their side of the bracket, and they've got Lake Charles College Prep as a 3 seed. That's a matchup that stylistically would be great for both teams, having good high-powered offenses. But also sitting at the 7 seed on that side is Archbishop Shaw, who went to the finals last year in that bracket. So from what you've seen, I've gotten to see Loyola in person, and we all know what they're able to do on offense, not just the quarterback, but the running backs, receivers as well. But how do you think Loyola fits with that 2 seed, and how do you think that side of the bracket could potentially go for them?
And hey, remind me who they play one more time, because I didn't get a chance to see all the
So
brackets.
Loyola had a bye week. They'll play Bel Air next week, who upset
Bel-
Patrick Taylor. That
That's
was a
right.
17-16 matchup, I believe. So yeah, so Loyola will play Bel Air. If they win that game, they'll play what we think will be Archbishop Shaw, if Shaw can hold on there.
That's right. I'll try. I remember who Loyola. I forgot who Loyola played last night. Yeah, or who they were going to play this week if everything, if the chips fell a certain way.
Bel Air
Bel
Prep.
Air.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Loyola's a perfectly good team. They're when I saw them go up against North DeSoto a couple of weeks ago. I mean, that was probably one of the better games in the state of Louisiana that night. You have two good quarterbacks. You have Bryce Restovich, who could throw the ball real well. Again, another quarterback who's capable of throwing a deep ball as well in Bryce. Finds his receivers pretty easily right there. They also have a little bit of running back game as well. I wouldn't say it's as explosive as other teams in the area, but they are capable of running the ball and giving teams a lot of trouble. But Loyola is very, very good. Again, Bryce, I forgot his yardage. I think it was somewhere north of like 300 something yards he's thrown per game, like 350, 380 or something like that. Just a crazy stat, and it's just unreal. What he's putting up, him and Charlie Abraham have quite the connection. I was talking to one of the coaches about Loyola. Well, I actually ran into a Loyola coach last night. Jake Black has been such a automatic weapon for him, or a toy for Bryce Rustovich as a receiver. And Jake is a senior Jake is a senior this year, so they're going to lose him. But the other guys they have there, I believe, are juniors, and one of them
Charlie
is
McKenzie, Ty Walsworth, a sophomore, and Brock Jeter as well.
Yeah. So you have 2 more years with these guys at the minimum, and it's Loyola. If they're 7-0 now, I mean, just imagine what this team can be like when we're talking a year from now.
Yeah, and that's that was a really tough bracket that Shaw ended up running through. So kind of a potential 2 seed, 7 seed matchup. A lot of football to be played before we get that, but that could be a fantastic quarterfinal matchup. And then another regional round matchup that'll be, you've got to think will be a good one. Homer goes to Haynesville next week. And why not? Give it to me.
Man, it was crazy. Actually, so last night I went live from Homer High School. I filmed their game versus Franklin. And it actually ran into Coach Franklin from Haynesville. Ran at him and his staff over there. And we were. It was just funny that they were there, because I asked him, like, what do you guys do? What you guys are can do whatever you guys want. You guys can be chilled in the house watching TV. Like, what are you guys doing here? And they were scouting who they were going to see potentially next week, either Franklin or Homer. And it was really interesting. I actually noted to people in the stands, because I've been around Homer or covering Homer for, let's see, I think for the last few years. I mean, last 7 or 8 years, and I never seen a more empty stadium at when a game started. I'm like, what is going on here? This is crazy. Like, what is insane? And it was funny because I was talking to one of the other coaches there. They were saying, sometimes we're a little fair weather. It happens. But they missed a heck of a game last night, did they not? I mean, Elmer, I think, was down a couple touchdowns. And they came back and won 21-20. It was an incredible night. Homer, from what I saw last night, really good at running the ball. Somewhat young, a little bit.
Young
but
QB. Yeah,
young QB. There's some mistakes that are made, but they really. I was surprised they really held their own the way they did versus Franklin, because they were able to stop Franklin a lot on defense. Franklin didn't really have much of a. I mean, they threw a couple passes here and there, but primarily they ran it, and and Homer was able to stop them. And and like I said, for it being one of the most exciting games, I'd say in Louisiana that last night to see an empty stadium, I'm like, oh my god, this is insane. But yeah, their quarterback and the guys' names are running together to me all together in my head. But I mean, it was just fun to watch. Having the Claiborne Parish Super Bowl for the second round of the playoffs. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. I mean, that's a game I might definitely have to go to myself. Even though I covered Homer last week. That's a hard decision there. There's so many great games in our area next week. It's just hard that's a hard one to decide which one to go to.
Yeah, well, will not be an empty stadium in Haynesville.
No.
I can probably assure
No,
you.
no, not at all.
Town. Haynesville, the two-time runner-up in that bracket, and they're legendary, just Hall of Fame coach Red Franklin. He passed away earlier this year. So if the tourists can get one to honor him, he's watching from on high, watching those tours do battle. So hopefully they can make another run.
It's interesting, yeah, absolutely. Running into all the Hazel coaches last night, they're really passionate about this year. They really feel this is a group of guys they can really go down to the dome with and win a championship with. And I've never seen a more team. I mean, all teams are eager, obviously, to win a championship. Everyone wants to win, but I mean, I've never seen a more eager team who's just like dead set and locked in on not even coming up short of a championship because. Talking to Coach Franklin and one of the other staffers, they said they have about 10, 12 guys who are going to D1 schools on their roster, include Isaiah Washington, of course, the quarterback for Haynesville.
Davis, yeah.
Yeah, so like this is a group of guys. They want to win it. They said it's been 10 years or 11 years now. They're tired of it.
Yeah, it's been. I think 2014. Yeah. That's such a funny way to put it. They're tired of it. They're tired of these top single digit seeds and undefeated records. They want to bring home a trophy. So yeah, I'll no problem saying that I'll be rooting for them as they do that. Before we get you out of here, Chris, anything I missed in the Shreveport-Bossier area? Like we said, Evangel, North DeSoto. A lot of those other top teams will come back into the mix. Loyola next week, but anything I missed going into the regional round?
Honestly, last night I think we were all shocked by Northwood. Barb came in, and that was stunning. I mean, there's no way to mix those. No way to mix that. It was quite
Northwood
stunning.
Scored 21 against Loyola. And then scored 21 against Barb, who hasn't held anyone to 21 really all season. That was quite a game.
It was quite a game, and I mean, but I think it goes to show you that there's some. It proves a point that we see and we hear every week. Shreveport has a lot of great talent, a lot of talented teams on offense. Unfortunately, defensively, it's. It has been. I don't want to say a struggle because that's not fair to say that, but defense.
A factor.
A factor. They're sometimes they're finding their way in some plays, and it's But again, I mean, they're definitely trying their hardest out there, obviously. But offense definitely drives a bus with a lot of these teams here, and and that's like I mentioned, I said a while ago. I think this week will be the indicator of not just 1-5A, but a lot of teams in our area, how well they'll stack up against the rest of the state. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Deal with allergies as well. So no, but I think we'll see how well they deal with the rest of the state this week.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned that drives the bus, but due to those offenses, a lot of them don't have to crank up the bus next week. They'll get home games, so so you'll have a lot of action to cover in Shreveport-Bossier. Chris DeMargin, KSLA Sports, you see his handle right there on the screen. Follow him all week long, not just for high school football, but for all athletics in Shreveport-Bossier, high school, college, pros, everything. He does such a great job. I enjoy watching Chris throughout the week so I can stay in tune with Shreveport-Bossier. So, Chris, we really appreciate your time this morning, and hopefully next week we can recap some of these big regional rounds.
No, thank you so much, and I apologize again. I'll try to not doze off but seriously, you do an amazing job in 446 Sports. I actually listened to it the other day while I was in the gym. last week's episode, and it's incredible, very informative. I really love what you're doing, man. And I can't wait to see this take off. I really can't.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And look, it's people like you that help us make it what it is. And look, like I always say, the more coverage for these students, for these kids that work really hard, all year long to play, the more coverage we can all provide for them, the better off we all are, and it just makes it that much more fun. So I appreciate it. If even just tangentially being considered a colleague of yours is a huge honor for me. So I appreciate.
Hey, you're in there. You're in the trenches. You're in there, man.
I appreciate sharing the screen with you for sure, Chris, and appreciate your time this morning, sir. Hopefully we can talk to you soon.
Yeah, see you next week, man.
Yep, have a good morning.
You too. Talk to you later, Drew.
Yep, Chris DeMargin from KSLA Sports in Shreveport. I've been following him for years, even going back to when he was over in the Monroe market doing his thing over there. Chris does such a good job covering sports. Not only high school, but everything. He's a great follow online as well. So I follow him. You should too. That's going to do it for the Red River Roundup this morning. Had a really, really great time recapping some of these first round games. And I know we say it all the time, but it's only going to get better next week as we move into the regional round. And as some of these really top seeds, they get to enter the fray, so to speak, and start to show off what they've been doing to get those top 10 seeds. So thank everybody who spent some time with us, talking with us this morning. Mike McMillan and Cass Hargis from the North Shore Prep Report. Make sure you follow them online. Chasten Tavares, 92.9 The Lake, and the Pigskin Preview. He does a great job of previewing everything in Southwest Louisiana. We had Caroline McPherson, SEC.com. She recapped Parkview Baptist and Darbone Woods for us. Jace Lejeune from Gridiron Football USA, recapping some Baton Rouge teams and also getting ready for that bowl game. Chris DeMargin from KSLA in Shreveport, helping us to recap all those games. We appreciate those guys so much for doing what they do and helping us recap the state. I will be down in Erath next week. The Farmers will travel down there for a 5-12 matchup. I'm actually the radio play-by-play voice of the Fighting Farmers. A very proud program who's used to going to the Superdome semifinals and really don't want anything that's not that. So they'll take on an undefeated Erath Bobcats team next week. I'll be there on the call for that one, and I'll try to recap that one as well. Union had a really nice showing last night with some of their running backs stepping up and filling up the stat sheet. Hopefully that offensive line has come into play, and hopefully that's a good game between the Fighting Farmers and the Erath Bobcats next week. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Show's available on demand after we sign off, and stay in touch with us all week long as we get ready for the regional round. It's only getting more and more exciting. Thanks everyone for being with us. You've been watching the Red River Roundup with Marshall Leffler on 446 Sports.